All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ariel Clemmer, and it's my honor to serve as chair of the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court Standing Committee on Pro Bono Legal Services. I'm very pleased to welcome you to the 2022 Adams Awards ceremony. I'd like to add a special welcome to this year's 4 recipients, attorneys Rebecca McDowell-LaCrosse and Eleanor Newhoff, and recent law graduates Chris Creech and Raven Francomano. I would also like to welcome Chief Justice Kimberly Budd and Justice Elspeth Seifer, and thank them for carving out their time in their busy schedules to be here with us today. As we wrap up my first year as chair, I am struck both by how far we've come as a legal community over the last 12 months, and simultaneously how far we have to go. Today, we are delighted at being able to be here in person with you all for the first time in 3 years. In a nod to the times, however, we are webcasting in the back of the room, and for those who either cannot or do not wish to be here today, we're making all the accommodations. In discussing this year's plans with Chip Finney, who hopefully most of you know is the Deputy Legal Counsel to the Supreme Judicial Court, and also a key organizer of today's events, it seemed prudent to do a hybrid program just in case, given that these days, even the most careful of plans can change on a dime. This perpetual uncertainty has seemingly underscored much of our pro bono culture across the Commonwealth this past year. In some cases, this has led to quite positive developments. For instance, the pandemic has continued to drive new technological innovations, enabling pro bono volunteers to connect differently with clients, like being at their desks for pajama court. It has facilitated pro bono trainings and volunteer opportunities, and it's expanded access to technology and virtual services for those of low and modest means. In addition, virtual and hybrid court sessions have continued in many jurisdictions and case types, which for some reduce the barriers faced by court-involved litigants across the state. Further, the pandemic has seen novel strategic collaborations and deepened partnerships as organizations work to do more in the new normal and to meet the heightened need for assistance. Of course, for many, the ongoing pandemic has continued to bring great suffering and challenges. This too has impacted the pro bono space. Our committee commissioned a report this past year from several graduate students in the Masters of Public Policy program at Northeastern University. Led by Gordon Shaw of Community Legal Aid and the committee's Pro Bono Culture Subcommittee, the report assessed the state of pro bono legal services in Massachusetts. Among other things, the report found that the pandemic impacted the delivery of pro bono services in the following ways. Attorney volunteers struggled to keep home and work separate. Demand for pro bono services increased. The pandemic has hastened retirement. Attorneys struggled to work with their clients, impacting the quality of attorney-client interactions. Levels of stress and anxiety were more prominent than ever, and organizations found that it was harder to connect with volunteers. It is thus even more special today against these ever uncertain times and such COVID-19 driven challenges that we are able to pause and take a few minutes to celebrate those who have selflessly provided hundreds of hours of pro bono service over the past year. We are also here to recognize and thank all of the new members of the Supreme Judicial Court Honor Roll. These attorneys, organizations, and law students have also donated many hours of pro bono service and play a critical role in our efforts to increase access to justice across Massachusetts. The Adams Awards ceremony is always one of the best events of the year, in part because no matter what is going on in the world, hearing about the service of our Adams Award recipients is bound to be uplifting and energizing. Many folks, and particularly those in our field, would also say the same about doing pro bono service themselves. Therefore, while we are here to celebrate the extraordinary pro bono service of these 4 honorees, One not so hidden agenda item for today is to give them a platform to tell their stories so that many of you will be similarly inspired to become engaged or more engaged with providing pro bono services this year and in the years ahead. As has been done in the past, I'd like to take a moment to tell you a bit about the Sjc Pro Bono Committee. The justices of the Sjc created this committee in 1999. Since that time, the committee has been chaired by wonderful, prominent pro bono individuals, most recently Sue Finnegan, Kathy McGrath, and Elizabeth Ennin. The goal of the committee is to promote pro bono legal services throughout the Commonwealth. In pursuit of that goal, we engage in the following activities. We recognize and celebrate outstanding pro bono service. We encourage law students and new lawyers to develop a habit of engaging in pro bono service. We learn as much as we can about pro bono legal services in Massachusetts so that we can improve those services over time. And we engage with members of the bar so we can learn how to better support their pro bono efforts. There are typically 15 or so members of the pro bono committee. One member is an Sjc justice. We were honored this past year to have Justice Elspeth Seifer join the committee. We are truly grateful for your time and expertise. The director of the Access to Justice Commission also sits ex officio on the committee. Carolyn Goodwin, 3 rows back here. The current director has been a member of the committee for nearly 3 years. The remaining members are appointed by justices of the Supreme Judicial Court and typically serve 2 3-year terms. It is a significant time commitment, and I would like to recognize and thank our committee members now. Felicia Ellsworth, Victoria Gottney, Carolyn Goodwin, and Carlos Teuscher, who serve on our Lawyers in Training subcommittee. Dick Bauer, Alana Gelfman, Kimberly Parr, and Gordon Shaw, who make up our Rules Committee, and Nikisha Davidson, Shanika Davis, Janelle Moore, and Seth Organd of the Outreach, Communications, and Diversity Subcommittee. Sadly for us, this year we have a number of members ending their terms. I would like to thank Bill Gavovich, Steve Russo, Val Ribeiro, Patrice Sabak, and George Michalek for their service on the committee. Their contributions have been innumerable and invaluable, and we will miss them all very much. I would also like to extend a warm welcome to our newest committee members, Courtney Pitta and Geraldine Grubis-Perzaro. They will officially join us next Tuesday, and we are thrilled to have them on board. The committee seeks new members each year and especially prioritizes geographical, institutional, population, and practice area diversity. I would encourage any Massachusetts attorneys in the audience who are interested to consider applying. And now it is my great honor to introduce to you Chief Justice Kimberly Budd. Chief Justice Budd was appointed as an Associate Justice on the Supreme Judicial Court in August of 2016 and was elevated to Chief Justice by Governor Baker in December of 2020. Chief Justice Budd, I know I speak for the entire Pro Bono Committee when I say that we are grateful for the time you so generously spent with us. We fondly remember our trips with you to law schools across the state, and we appreciate the perspective and expertise you've brought to all of our discussions. Thank you for your ongoing commitment to access to justice. I now present to you Chief Justice Budd.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ariel. It's really great to be here. I want to welcome all on behalf of the justices of the Supreme Judicial Court. Having been the Sjc representative of the Pro Bono Committee, it's especially nice to be here, and I have to echo Ariel's comments. This is a really inspiring day. The stories that you're going to hear are absolutely amazing. And so I want to offer my sincere congratulations to each Adams Award recipient, as well as each Pro Bono Honor Roll participant on your accomplishments, and I want to thank you for your pro bono service. I know, because I've been involved in the committee, I know, I understand and appreciate the amount of time that goes into doing pro bono work And I know it's not easy, but I know the difference it can make in people's lives. You may well know that legal aid organizations in Massachusetts have to turn away over half the people who come to them for help because they don't have the resources to serve everyone. That means that each year, tens of thousands of people who can't afford counsel remain unrepresented in civil cases. And these cases can have a critical impact on their lives. We're talking about eviction cases, divorce cases, consumer debt. By providing volunteer legal services to people in need, you help to close this justice gap. So I really thank you for all that you do to provide pro bono legal service. And I also want to thank the members of the Pro Bono Committee and all the court staff who've worked behind the scenes to make this event possible. I want to thank the outgoing members of the committee and welcome the incoming members of the committee. I want to especially thank Justice Ellie Seifer for being the new representative for the committee and presenting this year's Adams Awards. Once again, congratulations to all of our pro bono honorees. Thank you for your service and keep up the good work. Thanks.
Next, we'll hear from Victoria Gottney, who will recognize the legal organizations, individual attorneys, and law students on this year's Supreme Judicial Court Pro Bono Honor Roll. Victoria is the Private Attorney Involvement Coordinator at South Coastal Legal Services. She manages the Private Attorney Pro Bono and volunteer projects. Thank you, Victoria.
Good afternoon. I'm pleased to join you this afternoon to recognize the good work of all the attorneys, law students, law firms, and legal organizations who qualified for the Supreme Judicial Court Pro Bono Honor Roll. The Supreme Judicial Court Pro Bono Honor Roll was first established in 2010 at the urging of then Justice Ralph Gantz, soon after he joined the SJC. It was one of many initiatives he supported to recognize and encourage pro bono service. Initially, the Pro Bono Honor Roll recognized law firms, solo practitioners, and other legal organizations who met certain criteria of at least 100 hours, for average hours of pro bono work and firm policies supporting pro bono service. Since then, 2 new categories have been added to the Pro Bono Honor Roll. In 2013, the Pro Bono Honor Roll began recognizing law students. And in 2020, the Honor Roll added 2 new categories for individual attorneys. The Honor Roll for attorneys who completed at least 50 hours of pro bono service during the prior calendar year, and the High Honor Roll for attorneys who completed 100 hours or more of pro bono service during the prior calendar year. Despite the challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic, we have had an extraordinary response to the Pro Bono Honor Roll. Nearly 550 individual attorneys qualified for the Pro Bono Honor Roll. 245 attorneys provided at least 50 hours of pro bono legal services to qualify for honors, and 297 attorneys provided at least 100 hours of pro bono legal services to qualify for high honors. The collective impact of their work is enormous, a total of approximately 42,000 hours of pro bono service delivered in calendar year 2021. And among law students, I believe we had the highest number of honor roll participants ever. 348 law students qualified for the honor roll by providing at least 50 hours of law-related pro bono service over the course of their law school careers. Altogether, these students have donated over 17,000 hours of pro bono service. And finally, 4 law firms have qualified for the Pro Bono Honor Roll for legal organizations: Foley Hoag, Soraya Law, Sunstein, and Wilmer Hale. To obtain this special recognition, these firms certified that they treat pro bono hours the same as billable time or its equivalent, and that in calendar year 2021, their Massachusetts attorneys provided an average of 50 hours of pro bono service per attorney, or that 75% of their attorneys provided at least 25 pro bono hours each. This is a stringent standard, and we salute the firms that strove to meet it. Unfortunately, due to the high volume of lawyers and law students participating in the Pro Bono Honor Roll, we cannot recognize each of you here today, but we have added your names as new honorees to a webpage for the Pro Bono Honor Roll, and the court's Public Information Office will be emailing each of you certificates recognizing your service. The Pro Bono Committee deeply appreciates the volunteer legal assistance that all of you have provided. We understand, because we're lawyers too, and we're once law students, when you're already how challenging it can be to make the time for pro bono service when you're already juggling the demands of your everyday work, family, and other obligations. I can also tell you that as the private attorney involvement coordinator for Legal Services Organization, I know firsthand the kind of impact that you can have when you volunteer your services to help people who cannot afford counsel. I've had the distinct pleasure of working with some of you, and I want you to know you're increasing the reach of our organizations, stabilizing homes and families, and changing lives for the better. You have our deepest gratitude. So on behalf of the SJC Standing Committee on Pro Bono Legal Services, thank you for your dedication and commitment and the tremendous benefits you provide to our clients across the Commonwealth.
It is now my pleasure to introduce the Honorable Elspeth Seifer, Associate Justice of the Supreme Judicial Court, who will present this year's Adams Pro Bono Awards. After serving on the appeals court for 17 years, Justice Seifer was appointed to the SJC in 2017 by Governor Charlie Baker. And we are fortunate that, among her many duties on the court, she serves as the SJC representative to the Standing Committee on Pro Bono Legal Services. Thank you, Justice Seifer, for joining us today.
Good afternoon. It is truly a great pleasure to join you for this wonderful ceremony. And I have to say, before I move too deeply into my remarks, that after reading about what everybody did, it's very overwhelming and very impressive. And I look back and I think, boy, when I was a younger lawyer, I don't know if I could have done that. So much time has gone into this, into all the work you do. So this award was named for John Adams and John Quincy Adams, who both exemplified pro bono service at its finest during their legal careers. The Adams Award recognizes lawyers, law students, law firms, and other legal organizations who have demonstrated exceptional commitment to providing volunteer legal services for those in need. The recipients are selected by the members of the SJC Standing Committee on Pro Bono Legal Services. This year's ceremony is especially meaningful because it is the first time since 2019 that we have been able to gather in person for the Adams Awards. Due to the pandemic, the Adams Awards programs in 2020 and 2021 were conducted remotely. Because we were not able to meet the award recipients in person over the last 2 years, we have invited them to return this year, and I would like to take a moment to recognize them before turning to this year's honorees. If you are present here today, please stand when I call your name. Our 2020 Adams Award recipients were Crispin Birnbaum for her extensive efforts. There she is. Extensive efforts to expand free legal assistance to provide sealing and expungement of criminal records for low-income clients through numerous training programs. Thank you. Jim Rollins. There. For devoting 16 years of pro bono service to the cause of freeing a wrongfully convicted Pennsylvania inmate who was released after 23 years on death row when his conviction was finally overturned. Congratulations. Good job. And Christian Westra for his instrumental role in bringing together, bringing together partners to launch the COVID Relief Coalition, a group of law firms, nonprofits, and government agencies that provided information and pro bono support to nonprofits and small businesses to access emergency relief during the COVID-19 pandemic. The committee also gave a special award named in honor of the late Supreme Judicial Court Chief Justice Ralph Gantz to Sue Finnegan for providing extraordinary leadership in pro bono legal services and improving access to justice over the course of her career. Our 2021 Adams recipients were Sam Breyer, for providing over 3,000 hours of pro bono representation to low-income domestic violence survivors and their children in complex, highly contested family law matters. Michael Sjc, for his pro bono representation of unaccompanied minors who enter the U.S. immigration system, and Bethany Serrata, for her leadership in providing and supporting pro bono legal services throughout the Community Service Committee of Massachusetts Black Lawyers Association and through Project Opportunity, a program sponsored by the City of Boston in partnership with Lawyers Clearinghouse that provides free criminal record sealing and expungement for clinics for Boston residents. Whether they are able to join us here today or not, I think we should give them all one more round of applause for their wonderful work. And now it is time to recognize this year's Adams Award honorees. As you will hear, there is great variety in the kinds of pro bono work that they undertake. It ranges from leading voting rights litigation in federal court, to helping people navigate the immigration system, to advocating for international human rights, to assisting artists with their legal issues. But all of our honorees share one thing: an extraordinary, extraordinary dedication to helping people in need who otherwise might lack the necessary legal tools to address the challenges they are facing. Our first Adams Award recipient this afternoon is Rebecca McDowell LaCroix. I knew I was going to mess up your last name. LaCroix is a litigation partner in the Boston office of Brown Rudnick. The SJC Standing Committee on Pro Bono Legal Services has selected Attorney LaCroix for this award in recognition of her extraordinary pro bono efforts over the last 2 years in 2 different areas of law: voting rights and immigration law. Beginning in 2020, she led a pro bono team of Brown Rudnick lawyers working on voting rights litigation to change how the city of Worcester elects its school committee. Communities of color made up nearly half of Worcester's population, and 60% of the student population consists of Black, Latino, and Latina students. Yet the city school committee was all white and had been all white with few exceptions throughout most of its history. The problem was that the city's system of electing school committee members solely as citywide at-large members tended to dilute the votes of communities of color. These communities were not represented, and as a result, they believed that the issues important to them were not being adequately addressed by the school committee. They contacted lawyers for civil rights assistance, and lawyers for civil rights in turn recruited Attorney LaCroix to lead the efforts to change the system. She also, with her team, worked with Lawyers for Civil Rights, the Worcester branch of the NAACP, another community organization called Worcester Interfaith, and a group of individual plaintiffs to build their case and craft a compelling complaint. They filed suit in the Federal District Court in Worcester in February 2021, alleging that the existing school committee election system violated the Federal Voting Rights Act and the Equal Protection Clause of the U.S. Constitution. By October, they had succeeded in negotiating a consent decree with the city that will change the school committee elections to a more inclusive system that incorporates district representation by 2023. In nominating Attorney LaCroix for an Adams Award, Worcester NAACP President Fred Taylor praised her as a fierce, is that right? You ask your daughters. A fierce advocate who also took the time to conduct numerous community education sessions so that the community members were engaged in the process of change. We knew we were in good hands with Rebecca, he writes, because she was always able to explain what was going on in the lawsuit in a way that everyone could understand. He concludes by observing that the consent decree that Rebecca negotiated is another step towards equity, and all our children will be the biggest beneficiaries of this change, which will result in a school committee that is more representative of Worcester Public Schools students. Now that's pretty impressive, but that doesn't end with voting rights litigation. Even as she was still completing work relating to the consent decree, Rebecca jumped into yet another major pro bono project. Following the fall of Kabul to the Taliban in August 2021, she led another Brown-Rudnick team that quickly prepared and filed 13 humanitarian parole applications for at-risk Afghan families seeking temporary admission to the United States. Throughout the intense process of compiling and organizing the hundreds of documents needed to complete these applications, and that's federal paperwork, so it would be hard. She worked side by side with firm associates and her paralegals. Attorney LaCroix carried out these large-scale pro bono projects on top of a very busy litigation practice and numerous other services and service activities. During the past year, for example, she was a member of the Brown-Rudnick team representing Johnny Depp in the highly publicized litigation and trial with his ex-wife. She also co-founded and co-chairs the Brown-Rudnick Women of Power Networking Initiative, serves on the firm's Racial Justice Advisory Task Force, and is a member of the Board of Directors of Lawyers for Civil Rights. Yet despite these many other responsibilities, she has still devoted herself to major pro bono projects. Attorney LaCroix's work over the last 2 years is an inspiring example of how a dedicated and generous lawyer can apply her skills to change the lives of people who could never afford such representation. For her extraordinary pro bono efforts, the SJC Standing Committee on Pro Bono Legal Services is pleased to present Rebecca LaCroix with one of the year's Adams Pro Bono Publico Awards. Congratulations.
Thank you. 2.5 years ago, while we were still in the early stages of the lockdown due to the pandemic, I sat at home and watched on TV the Black Lives Matter protests in response to the killing of George Floyd and too many others. I was in awe of the number of people who were out there risking their lives to support that movement, and I thought hard about what I was doing to affect change and to be of service. The answer I kept coming back to was not enough. I emailed Brown-Rudnick's new at the time pro bono director, Meredith Joseph, and I said simply, I want to help. Meredith had already been hard at work expanding our relationship with Lawyers for Civil Rights here in Boston, where my partner Wayne Dennison was on the board. It wasn't long after that our firm was offered the opportunity to join LCR in pursuing voting rights litigation that sought to remedy an unconstitutional electoral system that was in place for the City of Worcester School Committee. At the time, the all-at-large citywide plurality-based electoral system was unlawfully diluting the votes of Latino, Latina, and Black voters in Worcester, a violation of the Voting Rights Act and the 14th and 15th Amendments of the U.S. Constitution. We started with 2 organizational plaintiffs who were actively involved in the community and working with the city government in Worcester, Worcester Interfaith and the Worcester branch of the NAACP. However, they were hitting roadblocks in getting the city to commit to real change that would account for the voices of the communities of color, which had increased in proportion in Worcester from 8.2% in 1980 to 44% in 2018. Students of color in Worcester's public schools make up about 70% of the student population. In the decade leading up to LCR being contacted, there had only been 1 seat on the school committee held by a person of color, and she did not win re-election to a second term. Increased police presence in the Worcester schools, racism, as well as more frequent and more severe disciplinary action all negatively impacted the educational experience of students of color there. We joined LCR in participating in a variety of community and individual meetings with Worcester residents, learning about the experiences of the community members and understanding how we fit in terms of being able to help. Even as an experienced lawyer, counseling clients in these types of matters use different muscles than the ones I was using in my day-to-day practice. I was grateful to be learning from Oren Selstrom of LCR, who expertly balanced the human side of our case with the legal. As we met with the community, we were both saddened to hear stories of how students of color in Worcester were treated as a result of the lack of responsiveness of the school committee to issues affecting them, but inspired by the hard work and vision of the residents who, despite these injustices, loved their city and had hope that change was possible. Thanks to the efforts of Worcester Interfaith and the Worcester chapter of the NAACP, we connected with many other individuals who were passionate about change in the way the votes were counted for school committee and who wanted to serve as plaintiffs. We met an 18-year-old plaintiff who had been active in local politics since she was a child. Another plaintiff had been involved more than a decade earlier in a lawsuit against the school district, demanding that it provide bilingual education to accommodate its English learning students, and hadn't stopped fighting for equity in education since. We had a plaintiff who was formerly incarcerated and who now worked to end the use of solitary confinement and to support those who had been incarcerated and rebuilding their lives. All of our plaintiffs were showing up to improve the systems and communities in which they were living for themselves and for others. Shortly after we filed our lawsuit, the City of Worcester agreed to change its electoral system for the school committee. Starting next year, its elections for school committee will be comprised of both district-specific and at-large representatives. We are confident that this is a positive step forward toward a more equitable Worcester, and are proud to have played a small role in helping the city make this change. In the last 2 years, I've also been privileged enough to work with nonprofits and small businesses dealing with the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, and an Afghan-American citizen who served as an interpreter for the United States Armed Forces during the war in Afghanistan to help try to bring his family to the United States following the fall of Kabul. Today, I helped file an amicus brief with the United States Supreme Court on behalf of the Boston University Center for Anti-Racist Research in the voting rights case Moore v. Harper. I'm inspired by our clients every day, by their perseverance, by their contributions to others, by the change they strive to accomplish. They remind me to keep showing up. I'm incredibly honored to be receiving this award for the pro bono work that I've done. I'm grateful to work with Meredith Joseph, Andy Straley, and Bill Baldiga, who support a pro bono program at Brown Rudnick that allows our lawyers to do work that's meaningful to them. I have to thank the incredibly smart, hardworking lawyers at LCR, including Oren Selstrom and Yvonne Espinoza Madrigal, for their willingness to patiently share their decades of expertise and knowledge with lawyers like me who are eager but still learning. And I'm so appreciative of my colleagues, including Brian Olasco, who worked tirelessly throughout the duration of the Worcester case to be sure that we got the best results for our clients, and Kyle Dorso, who helped manage the 13 humanitarian parole applications on behalf of our Afghan-American client. I am so fortunate to be a part of a community of lawyers who prioritize service. Thank you.
Congratulations. Our next Adams Award recipient, Eleanor Newhoff, is a lawyer whose exceptional dedication to serving people in need through both pro bono services has literally spanned decades and hundreds of cases. Attorney Newhoff has devoted her career to helping immigrants, often through pro bono service. Earlier in her career, she spent years as a volunteer attorney and immigration supervisor at Community Legal Services and Counseling Center, now known as the De Novo Center for Justice and Healing. She also worked both as a volunteer and a staff attorney at the Greater Boston Legal Services Immigration Unit, as a clinical instructor with Harvard Immigration and Refugee Clinic, and as a volunteer with the PAIR Project. When there was an urgent need, when there was an urgent need for pro bono assistance, she was often one of the first to step forward. In 2007, for example, when the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Service carried out a surprise raid on a factory in New Bedford, Attorney Newhoff paused her private practice so that she could work around the clock, representing more than 70 clients caught up in the raid. More recently, in 2017, Attorney Newhoff returned to the De Novo Center for Justice and Healing to serve as a volunteer mentor and consultant for other attorneys working on immigration cases. Even experienced attorneys turn to her for advice on their most difficult cases. De Novo states that her willingness to share her knowledge with other volunteers, attorneys, and paralegals demonstrates her passion for increasing immigrant supports at every level, not just through those who she can individually help. Attorney Newhoff also played an instrumental role in assisting De Novo in launching and staffing a new immigration clinic in partnership with the City of Cambridge. Initially, she met with 5 to 7 clients each month, providing legal advice and referrals for additional services. Then the COVID-19 pandemic began, and the number of clinic volunteers fell by almost half. Attorney Newhoff stepped into the breach. She began seeing even more clients each month so that the clinic could continue to serve as many people as possible. All told, Attorney Newhoff has devoted hundreds of hours to the clinic since it began. And over the course of her work with De Novo, she has provided volunteer legal services for 166 clients who were asylum seekers, special immigrant juveniles, or victims of crime and domestic violence. In nominating Attorney Newhoff for this award, De Novo's Executive Director, Modé Rohini, and Deputy Director, John Froy, note that the clients Attorney Newhoff serves often face cultural and language barriers and struggle with mental illness, which impacts their ability to access legal services. Her calm and empathetic demeanor and her deep understanding of immigration law make her an invaluable resource to these clients. Above all else, they conclude, Attorney Newhoff is a passionate advocate for her clients who continue to use her extensive knowledge and experience to serve underserved populations, advocate for those who are navigating the complex immigration system, and inspire her colleagues. Attorney Newhoff's tireless dedication and commitment are illustrated by two anecdotes shared by a veteran legal services attorney. He recalls that once, after she had had surgery, almost the first thing that she did upon regaining consciousness was to inquire about her immigration clients. He also remembers that after Attorney Newhoff accepted the Massachusetts Bar Association's Pro Bono Publico Award in 2011, she went straight away into the hall where programs had informational tables to find out how she could volunteer more of her time. These memories reflect the kind of advocate and person that Attorney Newhoff is. So on behalf of the SJC Standing Committee on Pro Bono Legal Services, I thank Attorney Newhoff for her dedication and congratulate her on being one of our 2022 Adams Award recipients. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. First, I would like to thank the SJC's Standing Committee on Pro Bono Legal Services for the honor I feel in being one of the recipients of the John Adams and John Quincy Adams Award today. Thank you. I would also like to congratulate Rebecca McDowell-Lacarose, Chris Creech, and Raven Francomano on receiving this honor. Congratulations. This is a beautiful moment for me. Think of it. We're all here for different reasons, but together in this moment. So much of what we experience takes place in a space that we cannot anticipate nor control. So it has been for me. The experience of being a lawyer has never been something predictable, especially in the pro bono work that I've been involved with. This reminds me of a description I once read of the method landscape architects use to build a path through a garden. First, those enjoying the garden are encouraged to walk through, and after some time, the path that is formed by their footsteps is built as a permanent way. I do feel that the growth of the pro bono community is a similar process. The clients and their needs set the path that must be followed. The work may begin at one point and lead to another, exposing new legal needs that must be addressed. Sometimes in doing pro bono work, I find that I'm not sure whether I could solve the legal problem or whether I have the means to do so. The question that presented itself to me almost always is this: when a person may have the means and ability to help another who needs help, at what point do you decide that you've done enough? Pro bono work in particular has led me on a journey that's been my greatest teacher in answering that question. My colleagues at the De Novo Center for Justice and Healing set a standard in their work that answers this question. I'm particularly honored that my colleagues are here today to share this event with me. I have learned from my clients on so many occasions that where there is a bridge that has collapsed in their lives, leaving them stranded and without legal support, or they found themselves alone and without a way to confront the challenges they are facing, that reaching out a hand as a pro bono attorney helped them, yes, but also opened a window for me into their lives. As I learn more about my clients' world and life experience, both my understanding and my ability to help has increased. Of the pro bono work I have done, I have been particularly inspired by the generosity, strength, and resoluteness of asylum seekers who have suffered a loss of place in their culture and country, and yet continue to struggle for their beliefs, their identities, and the right to live their lives as the people they are. I first began to volunteer at what is now De Novo Center for Justice and Healing in 1978. I am fortunate and grateful that as I work as a pro bono attorney there still. Since then, the agency has grown exponentially and has found a way to serve the changing needs of the community. The clients have led the way in this growth, and with the inspiration and dedication of people at the De Novo Center, they have established a path through the garden. In closing, I would like to express sincere thanks to Mojdeh Rahani, John Froyo, and Valerie Fisk for their leadership at the De Novo Center for Justice and Healing, and especially for reminding me of the importance of pro bono work and the blessing that working with a gifted and dedicated legal community can be.
Thank you. Congratulations. Our next Adams Award recipient, Chris Cheech, established himself as a tireless and creative advocate for international human rights and as a pro bono leader among his peers. As a student at Boston University School of Law, from which he graduated this past May. Mr. Creech began his law school career shortly before the pandemic, and as the United States shut down, he looked outward, seeking volunteer opportunities with multiple human rights organizations around the world. He worked with Al Otra Lado's Border Rights Project in Tijuana, Mexico, assisting individuals seeking asylum, drafting legal briefs for wider use within the organization, and exploring new advocacy routes for Al Otra Lado and his clients. He volunteered with the U.S. branch of a legal action charity based in the United Kingdom called Reprieve to explore new answers to old questions concerning human rights issues, such as the use of the death penalty in the United States, the Middle East, and North Africa. According to Siobhan Sarin, his supervisor at Reprieve, Mr. Creech's research assistance was urgent, yet exceptional, a difficult combination for any lawyer to achieve. But what most impressed Mr. Sarin was Mr. Creech's ability to fit that research within the organization's existing strategy while pushing forward its advocacy in meaningful ways. Mr. Creech has applied that same innovative approach to the subject of statelessness, a threshold barrier to millions of people who, denied a nationality, cannot access basic rights such as education, healthcare, employment, or freedom of movement. In just one semester alone, he contributed over 100 hours of service to the Institute of Statelessness and Inclusion to develop advocacy strategies on issues of nationality. And as a member of the BU International Human Rights Clinic, he went above and beyond the hours required for academic credit while preparing a detailed report on the barriers Egyptian nationals face in obtaining full documentation and rights of citizenship. Mr. Creech continued this important work as a clinical research assistant and ultimately co-authored 2 detailed research reports on statelessness in Egypt and Iraq. Most recently, Mr. Creech spent his last semester of law school working with Asylum Access Malaysia to provide direct representation and case development assistance for refugee determination procedures before the UN Human Rights Commission. All told, Mr. Creech completed approximately 280 hours of pro bono service at BU Law, winning the school's 2022 Pro Bono JD Student Award as the law student who completed the highest number of qualifying pro bono hours. But equally important, he brought great qualities of heart and mind to his work. His professors and other supervisors describe him as an extremely proactive, conscientious, and hardworking student with a keen sense of justice and an intellectual force with a wonderful collaborative spirit who can draw connections while analyzing issues from all different angles. Today, Mr. Creech is continuing his human rights work with asylum access, Malaysia, and Kuala Lumpur, thanks to a BU Postgraduate Public Service Fellowship. Given the distance and 12-hour time difference between Malaysia and Massachusetts, he is unable to join us today, and we hope he is getting some rest before a full day's work. But we are fortunate to have with us Mr. Aaron Hackshaw, Director for Public Services and Pro Bono at Boston University School of Law, who has agreed to accept this Adams Award on behalf of Mr. Creech. So in recognition of his extraordinary dedication to pro bono service, the Supreme Judicial Court Standing Committee on Pro Bono Services is pleased to present the Adams Pro Bono Publico Award to Chris Cheech, with our thanks for all that he has done and will do in Malaysia and beyond for advancing the cause of justice throughout the world. Sorry. And now we'll hear from Aaron Hackshaw. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to bring you some remarks from Mr. Creech. So he sent me these remarks. I have practiced a little bit, so hopefully it will go well. I am grateful to the SJC Standing Committee on Pro Bono Legal Services and Justice Cipher for this award, and to Boston University for its nomination to the SJC Standing Committee as well. In law school, an enormous amount of emphasis is placed on chasing grades, securing prestigious internships or clerkships, a constant pressure that forces students to devote their time towards developing a resume for specific postgraduate law firm or in-house positions. It is typically not a process that leaves students with time to develop their own public interest ethos through volunteer or public service work, especially in a meaningful way that can develop into a lifelong practice. While at Boston University, I worked on a number of projects that I hoped would serve the public interest. I focused on human rights law as a way to address the deep tensions between the legacies of colonialism and the contemporary harms perpetrated by governments against their own citizens and refugees around the world. Individually, these projects hardly felt like they could provide meaningful support to underserved individuals or communities. And it has taken years of practice and development to arrive at a point where the skills developed through such pro bono work do feel like they can be meaningfully used to promote human rights. Making sure that students are exposed to meaningful and long-term pro bono work is essential to developing a robust, long-term practice of engaging in volunteer service for the public benefit. It is not enough to provide small projects that only encourage minimal engagement over time. Sometimes, small one-off projects can inspire individual students, but they do not instill widespread values of pro bono service in a profession that actively shapes society. Fostering a community where values of using the law for the public interest is a difficult project. It requires law schools, especially as the institutions with the power to shape student values in the law, to proactively engage with the student body and public interest work, to fund initiatives that provide opportunities for students to meaningfully support volunteer and pro bono projects from their first year beyond graduation. While at Boston University, I was fortunate to have the time to be able to focus on a number of pro bono projects in my free time, and I have been equally fortunate to meet lawyers through these projects who have become mentors that encourage volunteer service. I am grateful to Boston University for providing me with the time, skills, and opportunities to develop a pro bono practice. Moreover, I am glad that my exposure was enough to inspire a determination to continue to maintain that practice. My hope is that students and lawyers will do so, and that law schools and law firms will provide the support structures for lawyers to engage in more and more inconsistent volunteer service. Thank you.
Thank you very much for accepting that award on his behalf. Congratulations to you and the law school, too. Our final Adams Award goes to Raven Francomano, who graduated earlier this year from the University of Massachusetts School of Law. Over the course of her law school career, Ms. Francomano completed a truly amazing 632 hours of pro bono service. Most of her pro bono work was carried out through Volunteer Lawyers for the Arts, or VLA, which provides legal assistance to artists, cultural organizations, and creative entrepreneurs, often from marginalized communities who could not otherwise afford counsel. Her interest in supporting artists stems in part from her own artistic pursuits as a freelance visual artist, choral vocalist, and pianist. And then she went to law school. Ms. Francomano carried out multiple tasks for the VLA and its clients. She answered inquiries, filed applications, verified incomes for people who applied for pro bono services. She coordinated supervised client interviews. She researched a wide range of legal issues to support counseling and workshops for the VLA's clientele. And she assisted in negotiating and drafting contractual agreements for many artists. In nominating Ms. Francomano for this award, VLA's Deputy Director, Luke Blackadere, noted that she assisted VLA with a staggering number of pro bono projects and helped dozens of indigent artists and small nonprofits. In particular, he highlighted the importance of the intake work that she carried out with potential clients and her phenomenal dedication. He wrote that Raven was often the first contact our constituents had with the VLA, and for many artists, Raven gave our artists an opportunity, sometimes their first, to be heard. Raven spent countless hours gathering information from clients, developing the facts of their particular circumstances, and for us to either prepare or represent the client ourselves, or to refer them to volunteer pro bono our volunteer pro bono attorney panel. Raven always took a genuine interest in our clients' work and was incredibly sympathetic to their needs. Her enthusiasm for her work demonstrated her commitment to pro bono service and service to the arts. Ms. Francomano's pro bono service is all the more remarkable because she accomplished it while carrying a full course load and engaging in many other activities at UMass Law. She co-founded a mock trial organization, co-captained a moot court team, and served as vice president of the school's Legal Association of Women and as president of the school's chapter of a national legal fraternity, Delta Theta Phi. And not surprisingly, she has received many awards at UMass Law for her extraordinary service to the school and the community, including the school's Pro Bono Award and its Pillars of the Community Award, as well as a national award for Most Outstanding Student from Delta Theta Phi. For her extraordinary dedication to providing pro bono service to artists and others who cannot afford counsel, the SJC Committee on Pro Bono's Legal Services is pleased to present this Adams Pro Bono Publico Award to Raven Francomano.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much, Justice Cipher, for that lovely introduction. I'm overwhelmed with gratitude to have been selected for this most distinguished honor, and it means so much to me that the work that I'm so passionate about resonates with so many others. And though we're here to talk about my work at the VLA, I would not be standing here if it weren't for the support from Luke Blackadar and Jim Grace from the Volunteer Lawyers for the Arts of Massachusetts and the Arts and Business Council of Greater Boston. The same applies to the University of Massachusetts School of Law in Dartmouth, which provides a fostering community and a walk-the-walk perspective to pro bono work and truly promotes pro bono service from the inside out. The COVID-19 pandemic has had a devastating and profound impact on the Boston and the American arts and multicultural communities. Every single day, our inboxes were flooded with applications from desperate individuals who have been stripped of their livelihood, their means of creative expression, and often their identities. So as conditions improve in the arts sector, civil legal aid from organizations like the VLA of Massachusetts is more vital now than ever. In representation of clients, we were able to discuss what industry standards were. And we looked at proposed agreements with artists and these sophisticated adversaries and sophisticated parties they were working with, And we knew that if we weren't there to help them, they would have taken a significant cut, and they didn't quite understand or have the leverage to negotiate their worth with these large entities. So now artists in need turn to us every day to help them get back on their feet now that conditions are improving. And the law student and attorney volunteers play an essential role in protecting the creative and the financial interests of our creatives. So in that, I do extend my most heartfelt gratitude to the SJC Standing Committee of Pro Bono Legal Services for this recognition, and a heartfelt congratulations to my fellow recipients for their contributions to the legal community. Thank you all so much. I appreciate it.
Wow, what an amazing group. Let's give them all another round of applause. I don't know about you all, but I literally had chills for each of these stories that were told here tonight. It's just such an incredible and impressive slate of candidates. So I have to say some thanks. We would not have an Adams Award program were it not for the many people in the community who take time out of their very busy schedules to put together the nomination materials for these awards. We would like to especially thank all of our nominators for their willingness to help us identify, recognize, and celebrate exceptional pro bono service. As I'm sure you all know, events like this don't happen without lots of people working out the details behind the scenes. I would like to thank the following individuals whose hard work made this event possible. My colleagues on the SJC Standing Committee on Pro Bono Legal Services who selected the day's Adams Award recipients and helped prepare materials for today's event. SJC Executive Director Carol Lev and Administrative and Program Coordinator Blanca Tosado for their help with planning today's ceremony. Erica Gully Santiago, Kathleen Capstick, and Vanessa Scott of the SJC Public Information Office for their assistance with web content and communications related to this event and the Pro Bono Honor Roll. For their help with producing and presenting today's ceremony online, Jeff Travers, Deputy Chief Information Officer for Judicial Information Services, along with Jonathan Wardle and Suffolk University Media Services. And last, but definitely not least, I would like to thank Chip Finney. Among many other roles, Chip serves as a liaison between the justices and the Pro Bono Committee. Although he's not technically a member of the committee, he spends countless hours each week supporting the committee, and of personal value to me, its chair. And he is the key organizer of the Adams Awards each year, making sure this all happens flawlessly. I am personally very grateful to Chip for his thoughtful and wise counsel, his seemingly endless positivity and grace, and his support of me and the entire committee. Thank you, Chip. So if you have been inspired by what you heard today, I urge you to seek out opportunities for providing pro bono legal counsel to the residents of Cross, Massachusetts who need your help. Here are 3 ways you can find a pro bono case or project that fits your schedule. First, you can find a nonprofit or free legal services organization whose work aligns with your interests and beliefs, and simply ask them if they need help. Many do, but may not have the time to regularly post advertisements or announce their need. Your inquiry just might save someone's home or custody agreement or debt matter. It surely doesn't hurt to ask. Next, you can find a compilation of pro bono opportunities on the massprobono.org website. That's massprobono.org. And there you'll find a wide range of opportunities such as civil rights law, consumer law, disability, family law, housing law, immigration law, and public benefits law. And last but not least, I'd encourage you to check with your local bar association. Across the state, amazing pro bono initiatives are happening near you. Our bar associations are plugged in and even running various pro bono opportunities themselves. What better way to give back to your community than through your local association? In closing, I'd like to extend my congratulations to all of this year's members of the Honor Roll and our impressive 2022 Adams Award recipients. Thank you all for joining us today.